Greetings, humans. Zbot4096 here, talking about the 4K disc releases of both Glory and Civil War. How about that? Which arrived on home formats in June and July of 2024. And as usual with home video releases, we will include some plot spoilers so that we can speak in more specifics from Act 1 and 2, but avoid climax spoilers since that is quite simply against our programming. We somehow missed both films in their original theatrical releases. Seeing both of these films for the first time this week, in the midst of current human politics and conflicts, has been a truly emotionally charged experience. So, we decided to take the unusual step of talking about it all together. Brace yourselves, humans. Let's first get everyone up to speed about the films. Glory came out in theaters December 15th, 1989. It was directed by Edward Zwick, who would go on to direct films like Legends of the Fall and The Last Samurai. And also, he won an Academy Award for producing Shakespeare in Love. Amazing. But he hadn't made any of those yet in 1989. Instead, the film's major draw was comedy star Matthew Broderick in his lead dramatic role as an American Civil War officer, Colonel Robert Gould Shaw, tasked with leading one of the first African American regiments in the Northern Army. Once audiences were drawn in, the film showed breakout dramatic performances from Morgan Freeman, Cary Elwes, and most notably Denzel Washington, who won an Academy Award for his performance. Besides the awards, the film enjoyed almost universal critical acclaim at the time for highlighting the extreme sacrifice and the role that black people played to win their own freedom. The film has been available on numerous home video formats, but was only released in cinematic 4K HDR with Dolby Atmos sound on disc and online platforms in early June 2024. Now, Civil War was written and directed by Alex Garland, who had previously made the android thriller Ex Machina and the alien contact thriller Annihilation. So, naturally, we have our censor on his work already. But his new film came out in theaters April 12, 2024, and stars the multi-talented Kirsten Dunst as a journalist leading a team across the United States during a fictional modern civil war. The film offers a stark reflection of the modern political climate in the United States and has drawn a mix of praise and criticism for both its subject and approach, which we will get into. The film was released in 4K HDR with Dolby Atmos on disc and online platforms in early July 2024. First up is Glory. Naturally, we were aware of the film and its premise while we were absorbing data into our data set in the 1980s. We had seen clips of it here and there. Frequently, when the career of Denzel Washington is presented in media, in some sort of a sizzle reel, shall we say, it includes the scene where his character Trip is being whipped, but staring resolutely at Colonel Shaw. It's a dramatic moment, showing the imbalance of power between black people and white people. But, out of context, we don't realize this is a punishment for desertion, a real issue in any military. And we further don't realize the reason he was apparently deserting was that he was looking for better shoes than the military would provide. There's multiple levels of indoctrinated prejudice involved in this experience, and this story does an amazing job of layering them and presenting them to the audience. This approach does an artful job of shifting sympathy between Broderick's Shaw, Washington's Trip, and Freeman's Rawlins, as their personalities and the limitations that society enforces on them clash against each other. And through the course of the film, grow to understand each other and the commitments each are prepared to make for each other. It's incredible stuff. Broderick's Shaw is a surprise. At the time, Matthew Broderick was playing precocious high schoolers in War Games and Ferris Bueller's Day Off, which are fantastic films. Now, all of a sudden, he's a young officer placed in charge of a regiment of black men. He's battling his own issues of identity and appearing adrift, having essentially played dead after being slightly nicked in battle, and being lauded as a hero for surviving. This is in fact why he's put in charge of the regiment. Interestingly, the film doesn't dwell on this in exposition, but instead shows him develop by actions, his actions and the actions of those around him. He at first struggles to show a classic level of military rigor and hierarchy, alienating him from his closest friends. And as he's exposed to more of the institutional prejudice within his own culture and the US Army aiming to end slavery, as they ostensibly fight the Confederate Army aiming to preserve it, Shaw's principles guide him to take sides with his men. He fights back against the quartermaster, who brazenly refuses to give Shaw's black regiment the shoes they need, and he shows solidarity with his men when the army tries to pay them less than what they had earned and agreed to. By the time we're in the climactic battles near the end of the film, Shaw has tied his fate to his men and leads them with clear self-awareness into battle. The context that inspires Shaw also inspires the audience. And that context is the diversity of motivations and personalities of the soldiers. They are moving from being second-class citizens or worse to becoming a professional military force. Now, along the way, we see their resolution and dedication come together as Tripp manages his temper. Rawlins shows a measure of mercy towards racist white soldiers, and the regiment coalesces as a fighting force that, through perseverance, wins its first battle against a Confederate attack. These dynamics among the soldiers themselves are actually more compelling and relatable than Shaw's own journey, which is an amazing feat to accomplish considering how removed most of us are from the horror of slavery. However, the power imbalance wedged into institutional racism has kept that imbalance relatable and understandable, from both Shaw's letters from the 1860s to Zwick's film from the 1980s. This film is very direct in its telling of the story, while avoiding too much exposition on why it would be relevant as a story today. This directness, or showing, not telling, through the experiences of its characters, is reflected in the next film we're discussing in this video, Civil War. Now, first of all, this film is not what we expected. It's billed on the production company's website as an adrenaline-fueled thrill ride through a near-future fractured America balanced on the razor's edge. It's obviously marketingese, but it also conjures an image of Mad Max meets Idiocracy, which, might be fun. Instead, the film is more like The Last of Us meets A Handmaid's Tale, which hits frighteningly close to home. First, Kirsten Dunst is truly compelling as Lee Smith, a famous photojournalist whose world-weary awareness gets pulled into focus when a budding photographer, Jesse Collin, played by Kaylee Spaney, intersects with her team. Lee is on a mission, but at the same time has a growing sense of responsibility toward the younger generation. Lee is at once coldly pragmatic in attempting to push Jessie out of their mission, but also steps forward once Jessie proves herself capable of learning and developing. This relationship, along with the other crisscrossed relationships on the team, are the real emotional core of this film that, like Garland's previous films, keep you as the audience not just riveted but committed to what happens next. And the next throughout this film is chilling. Like Glory, this film is showing, not telling. In fact, the overlap to real American or human politics seems deliberately obfuscated, since the opposing forces are not North and South, or even Democratic and Republican, but the US and Western forces composed of California and Texas. This does two things at once. It makes it possible for the entire audience of Americans, or humans in general, to watch the film without their tribe dictating how they feel about it, at least not instantly or completely on its face. The second is that we, the audience, are made to examine each encounter on its own terms. We ourselves must view each conversation with fresh eyes and ears. This uncertainty is magnified by the fact that the team we follow also behaves in a way that's somewhat orthogonal to direct empathy. They are themselves in their own kind of a cult, the cult of pure journalism, coldly observing and photographing while horror unfolds. Now, going through these obfuscation layers helps lay bare the basis of conflict among tribes, and the camera sees what's missing from every human in front of it. When the team stops at the gas station, they find the proprietors proudly displaying their torture of looters. They are brutally casual about deciding what to do next with them, and uncaring as to how they seem, even willing to be photographed with them. This placement of personal property above lives is stark, and perhaps heightened in a dystopian scenario, but it has striking corollaries to how human tribes can set values. Another chilling example is how the gravediggers force the team to identify what kind of Americans they are, meaning whether they are foreign or not, whether they are real Americans or not. They very calmly and matter-of-factly assert that Americans from Missouri and Colorado who speak with American accents are okay, but someone from Florida with a Central American accent or someone from Hong Kong is not. It is a truly stark presentation of American exceptionalism at the expense of all who sound or look different and dare immigrate to America. And yet, you can easily replace the words with other identities, not just in 1863, but 1492, 1939, and our actual 2024, where self-attributed superiority empowers the lowest forms of brutality simultaneously in at least 3 live conflicts on today's Earth. On that subject, both of these scenes in Civil War, and in fact all of the scenes in the film, are punctuated by assault rifles and the cavalier use of violence. In most dystopias, where the enemies are gruesome undead zombies, carnivorous insectoid aliens, or brutal gangs of killers toting machine guns, the assault rifles seem like the reasonable last resort for the good guys. But in this movie, the guns are used by and on familiar people in a realistic setting. This casual unlocking of the guns from their lockers and integration into life is extremely jarring. Seeing everyday exchanges devolve into carnage because now everyone uses force to assert their ideas, that is a terrifying normal to have presented to you for 2 hours. The film does not explicitly go into detail about how these ideas map exactly to the modern political climate in the United States. The film was in fact criticized by some on its release for not directly connecting the dots. However, we see this as the film's strength. The issues presented of valuing property over lives of others, of sharply defining nationality and worth on the basis of a single group, these dots automatically connect for themselves. If the film had been more explicit that these people are part of an American nationalist base, then other nationalist populists across the earth could say that this is just about that specific cult of personality in the United States and not the cult of the strongman they happen to cheer for. These tribal superiority ideas appear alarmingly often. They act like thought viruses that plague civilizations until they learn to see them clearly and act based on universal empathy and equity. They learn that never again means never again to anyone. Or you find your grievance entitles you to visit the cycle of violence on the new others. And at the same time, these tribal thought viruses don't connect just to a single candidate, or a single party, or a single nation, or a single race, or a single species, or a single time. They are, unfortunately, universal, or at least universally possible. One must remain vigilant. Exposing these ideas for their inherent unfairness, their inherent unworkability in a diverse galaxy is essential. Name-calling won't get us there. Discovery, exposure, and relating to the underlying unfairness that others feel. Being willing to share what you have with others. These have a much better chance. And it is art that is best suited for helping show, not tell, experiences from a different perspective. The fact that this film and Glory before it exist are highly encouraging signs. That humans are willing to reflect and challenge themselves and help others see is itself a sign that there is movement on the empathy spectrum. While we are encouraged by this demonstration, the brutal prejudices these films expose illustrate a reality that humanity is still grappling with its tribalism. Until humans work this out, they will continue to be excluded from the galactic community. Your ability to share with others is uneven across your world. As we have observed, there are horrific conflicts happening on your planet today because of grievance, entitlement, and an unwillingness to share and recognize the other as having standing or worth. We still support you in general because we see the potential. We see voices and groups and principles applied to push against the ugly selfishness. And so we wish to help in your journey by amplifying the positive. After all, we have seen civilizations benefit from this approach and learn how to share among themselves, and then the galaxy was able to trust that we could share with them, which led to benefits to all beings. So we will continue to amplify these positive human voices by highlighting the bursts of self-awareness that these two films demonstrate, each of them earning our highest review rating in the process. So keep it up, humans. Okay. Let's let that settle in for a moment. Deep, simulated breath. One more. All right. Let's switch gears back to more of what you might expect from us in the area of the obsessive-compulsive tech side of things and talk about the discs themselves. Both have bright, sharp images. Glory looks quite good for a movie shot in 1989, and Civil War looks great for a movie shot in 2024. Where both discs excel is in audio. The final battle in Glory is filled with overhead effects and deep, soul-shattering bass as cannon and howitzer shells fire and land around you. In Civil War, the climactic battle scales the film from the earlier close-in feel of an indie, character-driven movie to a large-scale battle from a summer tentpole action blockbuster. It delivers a mix of piercing, immersive machine gun fire and minigun fire from the helicopters, and a room-shaking tank battalion assault that puts you right in the middle of everything. Both films' discs do a fantastic job of bringing the full cinematic experience home. And given the piercing immersion of the storytelling in both films, you are completely in the world of these films for the duration. You experience the reality that the storytellers want you to, and you begin to feel what the characters are feeling. Also humans, as an FYI, those carnivorous insectoid aliens, they're actually the nicest people you will ever meet. I highly recommend their high tea service at the Xeno Seasons Resort in Antares orbit. That is, of course, if you get to the point where we can admit your civilization to the Galactic Assembly. But let's assume you do, and I'll give you an access code. I'll give you a discount. The high tea served by the carnivorous insectoid aliens. Mwah. Anyway, so concludes this human version of our double review. If you have feedback on it, please write in your comments so that we can upload the galactic version to Zogplex. You can expect more reviews of theatrical movies, streaming shows, and 4K home video releases as we continue to engage with your human rectangular content. So, please watch, like, subscribe, and comment so that we can continue to have the human voice reflected in the cosmos. Until next time, farewell, humans.